Have you ever felt like someone keeps appearing in your life, not in dramatic ways, but through soft repetitions? A name that shows up in conversations, a face that lingers in thought, a presence that quietly calms the noise inside you without demanding anything in return. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Sometimes what we call coincidence is not random at all. Sometimes it's your inner world trying to speak to you through the external. And when you start paying attention, the signs are no longer subtle. They feel like alignment. There are people who don't just walk into your life. They enter with a kind of rhythm, showing up at the right time, reappearing just when you thought they were gone. Their presence carries a strange sense of familiarity, as if your soul already knows them. There's no pressure, no need to impress, just a stillness that makes you feel more like yourself when they're near. The Stoics believed in order, logos, the intelligence behind the universe. Jung believed in synchronicity, meaningful patterns that arise from the unconscious. When these two ideas meet, something powerful happens. You begin to see that some connections aren't built, they're revealed. And those revelations come in signs. We often search for love with a checklist. We want it to make sense, to be logical, to match our timing. But what if the real thing doesn't always follow a plan? What if it moves through subtle signs, quiet recognitions, and a sense of peace you can't quite explain? This isn't about fantasy, it's about presence, inner calm, and noticing what the universe might be placing gently in front of you. Because the right person won't feel like chaos, they'll feel like clarity. So listen closely. The signs are already there. You start thinking about them at the most unexpected times, not when you're scrolling through old messages or revisiting memories, but during the still, unremarkable moments. When you're waiting at a red light, when you're folding laundry in silence, when the sun hits your face through the kitchen window, their image drifts into your awareness softly, like a gentle wave that doesn't demand attention, but refuses to be ignored. It doesn't come with urgency. There's no adrenaline, no racing heart, just a quiet recognition, a presence. They are there, not physically, but in the background of your consciousness, woven into the fabric of your ordinary life. And strangely, it doesn't feel disruptive. It feels grounding. The Stoics spoke of attention as a discipline. Epictetus often emphasized the need to focus on what's within your control. And yet, he also warned against ignoring the subtle signals of the self. He believed that wisdom lies in learning to observe what arises in your mind without panic, without judgment. If someone continues to appear in your thoughts gently, effortlessly, without obsession, it may not be mere distraction. It may be meaning. Carl Jung took this further. He believed that recurring thoughts, images, and people are the language of the unconscious. The psyche doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in patterns. When one particular soul continues to echo through your thoughts without force or fantasy, it's often the result of something deeper trying to surface. This is the first sign the universe offers. It's not grand, it's not loud, but it's consistent. Their name appears in unrelated conversations. Their memory walks through the quiet spaces in your day, not with drama, but with calm. Not because you are trying to hold on to them, but because some part of you already has. These moments are invitations, not commands. They're quiet nudges, not declarations. And yet, they mean something. The Stoic practice of prosouche, mindful attention, asks us to become watchful of the patterns that unfold inside us. Not to obsess over them, but to respect them as possible messengers. What matters is not that you think of them. What matters is how you feel when you do. If their memory brings you a sense of peace rather than longing, if your breath slows, your shoulders drop, and a stillness settles around the thought of them, that's not noise. That's alignment. Love doesn't always roar into your life. Sometimes it hums quietly until you are still enough to hear it. And sometimes the way someone lives in your thoughts says more than any conversation could. Not because you want them there, but because they're already part of your internal world. And when that presence feels like quiet strength instead of chaos, Perhaps the universe is asking you to listen more closely. You feel strangely safe around them. Not in the obvious ways. There may be no declarations of love, no grand gestures, but in their presence, something inside you relaxes. Your guard lowers, your breath deepens. You feel no pressure to perform, no urge to impress. You just are, and that's enough. In a world where connection is often confused with stimulation, this kind of stillness is rare. We're used to sparks, to butterflies, to the drama of uncertainty. But real connection isn't chaos, it's calm. It's when your nervous system feels less like it's bracing and more like it's exhaling. It's when someone's energy doesn't invade yours, it supports it. The Stoics didn't write about love in the modern sense, but they understood stability. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." How often do we imagine what love should feel like? How often do we chase excitement thinking it's passion when it's just adrenaline? Jung's work revealed something else, what he called the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine forces within each of us. When you meet someone who mirrors those internal energies, not in a way that overwhelms but balances, you don't feel pulled out of yourself. You feel drawn inward, towards something deeper, more aligned. This safety isn't born from predictability. It's not about someone who follows all the rules or fits a checklist. It's about someone whose very presence lets you rest. Not because they save you, but because you don't feel the need to defend yourself when they're near. You don't shrink. You don't perform. You simply return to your own center. You might notice it in the way they listen, in how they sit with your silence without trying to fill it, in how their words don't aim to impress, but to connect. You might find it in a look, a shared breath, the quiet understanding between you that doesn't need to be spoken. This is the second sign. The body knows before the mind does. Long before we rationalize feelings, the nervous system reacts. When someone makes you feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, it's worth paying attention. Because safety isn't boring, it's sacred. Real intimacy grows in safe soil. And when someone brings you back to yourself, when they calm the noise instead of adding to it, that's not ordinary. That's rare. The universe doesn't always speak through lightning strikes. Sometimes it speaks through soft spaces, through the quiet safety that tells your body, you are home. You start to grow simply by being near them, not because they teach you, not because they lecture you, but because their presence invites you to rise, to become more of who you truly are. You begin to reflect, to question, to soften. Old wounds feel less sharp, new dreams begin to take shape, and you don't feel pushed, you feel inspired. There's no jealousy, no control, no pressure, just the quiet presence of someone who makes you want to be better, not out of fear of losing them, but because their energy reminds you of what's possible. They don't need to say much. Sometimes it's the way they live, the way they carry themselves, the way they meet life with integrity that pulls something noble out of you. The Stoics believed in virtue, arit, as the highest good, a life aligned with values. And this alignment isn't found through isolation, but often through interaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." Some people awaken that in us. They make us grateful to be here, to be trying, to be evolving. Carl Jung described this as individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you are meant to be. It's a return, not to perfection, but to wholeness. And sometimes someone walks into your life who doesn't complete you, but reflects you, the parts you've forgotten, the strengths you've buried, the courage you didn't know you had. When you're with them, you don't feel smaller. You feel fuller, not because they add to your ego, but because they invite your soul forward. Their energy doesn't dominate, it illuminates. And in that light, you begin to shed what no longer belongs. This is the third sign. Your growth becomes natural, not forced, not tied to performance or praise, but to presence. You begin to speak with more honesty, to listen more deeply, to forgive more easily. Not because they demand it, but because their presence reminds you that this is who you are beneath the noise. There's a phrase the Stoics used, euthymia, meaning inner cheerfulness, contentment, a state of being aligned. When someone brings you closer to that state, not through intensity, but through consistency, they are not a distraction. They are a guidepost. You don't need fireworks to know it's real. Sometimes growth is the loudest signal of all. When you become more grounded, more peaceful, more yourself in someone's presence, it's not coincidence, it's connection, and it's exactly where you're supposed to be. They understand you without needing everything explained. It's not about knowing your favorite color or remembering your coffee order. It's deeper than that. It's the way they read the pauses between your words, the way they sense when something's off, even when you smile, the way they listen, not just to what you say, but to what you're not saying. You don't have to perform emotional translations for them. You don't have to justify your silence, your sadness, your sudden laughter. They don't rush to fix you or fill the space with advice. They just stay present, and in that presence you feel seen, not analyzed, not decoded, but gently understood. Jung believed that true connection is soul to soul, not ego to ego. He wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And transformation doesn't come from surface-level exchange. It comes from depth, from a resonance that doesn't need constant explanation to be real. The Stoics also understood this kind of depth. They believed in essentialism, what is real, what is true, what remains when all else is stripped away. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." When someone listens in this way, not to respond but to understand, you begin to feel that rare comfort of being known. This is the 4th sign. You don't have to explain every part of your story. They sense it, not because they're trying to figure you out, but because they're paying attention, deeply, kindly, without agenda. And even when they don't have the right words, their silence is safe. Their presence becomes a mirror, reflecting back the parts of you that long to be met, not fixed. You start to realize that understanding isn't about perfect language. It's about energy, alignment, emotional fluency. And when someone meets you there, in the unsaid, in the subtle, you feel less alone in the world, less divided inside yourself. You may try to rationalize it. You may think it's just shared experience or good timing, but the feeling goes beyond logic. It's something ancient, something known, as if your souls have had this conversation before. The Stoics taught that we should be at home with ourselves, but what a gift it is when someone else feels like home, too, not because they complete you, but because they understand the language your soul speaks, even when you're silent. That kind of understanding isn't found, it's recognized. And when it comes, you don't need to question it. You only need to breathe into it and let yourself be seen. You cross paths with them at the strangest times, moments that seem random but feel significant. It's not just once, it happens again and again, as if something beyond your planning is weaving your lives together, little by little, through ordinary moments that leave an extraordinary echo. You bump into them in places neither of you were supposed to be. A bookstore you don't usually visit, a street you took by accident, an event you debated attending until the last minute, and each time it feels less like coincidence and more like choreography. Jung called this synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that cannot be explained by cause and effect, but holds deep personal meaning. These are not just random meetings. They are intersections of energy, moments when the inner world and outer world collide to reveal something worth noticing. The Stoics would have called it fate, amor fati, the love of one's destiny, to accept what is as necessary and purposeful. When these encounters happen, not once but repeatedly, they hint at a rhythm, a pattern, a kind of cosmic alignment that gently whispers, pay attention. This is the 5th sign. The universe doesn't always shout. Sometimes it places people in your path with the patience of water wearing away stone, softly, repeatedly, until you begin to notice, not with alarm, but with curiosity. Why here? Why now? Why them? These moments don't feel forced. There's no agenda, no pressure, just presence. And in that presence, you feel a strange familiarity, as if the meeting was not new, but remembered, like a page from a story you've read before. It might be their laugh echoing through a crowd, or the way their eyes catch yours before either of you can look away. It might be the sense that every time they leave, the air holds on to them a little longer, and when they return, you feel something inside you settle. The Stoics taught presence, anchoring yourself in the current moment without clinging to outcomes. And yet, when the same presence keeps returning to you through life's seeming randomness, perhaps it's no longer just the moment. Perhaps it's a message. You begin to notice the signs not because you're searching for them, but because they won't stop appearing. Subtle, yes, but undeniable. The universe works like that. It repeats what matters. And when someone keeps walking into your life through doors you didn't open, there's a reason. All you have to do is stop pretending it's nothing and start wondering what it might become. They respect your solitude, and yet their presence makes it better. They don't fear your quiet moments. They don't take your need for space as rejection. They understand that you are a complete person with an inner world as vast as the one outside, and instead of trying to fill your silence, they honor it. Some people need constant noise, constant attention, constant proof that they matter. But this person doesn't. They are content being beside you, even in stillness. They don't shrink away from your depth. They don't flinch when you go quiet to process your thoughts. In fact, they meet you there. The Stoics revered solitude, not as loneliness, but as self-sufficiency, to be alone and not empty, to enjoy one's own company. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." And when someone enters your life who doesn't disturb that balance but deepens it, something rare is happening. Jung believed in the importance of integrating the shadow, the unseen parts of the self. That kind of work often requires solitude. It's not easy to open your inner world to someone, but when you do, and they don't try to fix, reshape, or escape it, you feel not exposed, but understood. This is the sixth sign. They don't make your life louder. They don't demand more than you're ready to give. They don't interrupt your inner work. Instead, they sit quietly with you, sometimes without words, and somehow make your solitude more expansive, more meaningful, more whole. You might find it in the way they wait for you to speak, without rushing the moment, or the way they smile when you're lost in thought, not needing to pull you back. You might feel it in the way they let you be, not out of disinterest, but out of deep respect. There's a comfort in their company that doesn't collapse when things grow quiet. You don't have to entertain them, or mask your tiredness, or pretend to be cheerful when you're not. Their presence doesn't shrink your space, it expands it. The Stoics spoke of ataraxia, inner tranquility, peace that isn't shaken by the presence or absence of others. And yet, when someone steps into your life and amplifies that peace rather than disturbing it, it may be more than chance. This kind of connection doesn't compete with your solitude, it complements it. You don't feel like you're losing yourself. You feel like you're meeting yourself more deeply, with someone quietly beside you. And when someone can stand in the presence of your silence without needing to fill it, that's not emptiness. That's love in its most respectful form. You feel a quiet sense of inevitability, as if no matter how far you drift or how much time passes, something between you remains untouched. It doesn't fade, it doesn't break. It just waits, still and steady beneath everything else. You may try to move on. You may tell yourself it was nothing. You may distract yourself with noise, with busyness, with logic. But deep down, in the quieter corners of your being, you know. There's a thread between you and them that doesn't fray. It may stretch, it may go slack, but it never truly snaps. The Stoics believe that what is meant for you will not pass you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." Sometimes the delays, the detours, the silences, they aren't obstacles. They are part of the path. They test the depth, the resilience, the alignment. And when a connection endures all of that, not through force, but through stillness, it's speaking its own truth, Carl Jung described the phenomenon of deep, enduring bonds as something rooted in the collective unconscious, an ancient part of our psyche that knows before we do. When two people are meant to find each other, life may scatter them, challenge them, separate them, but something keeps calling them back. Not always in romance. Sometimes just in presence, in awareness, in timing. This is the seventh sign. It's not about intensity. It's not about daily contact or constant reassurance. It's about an underlying knowing, a stability beneath all the noise, a pull that remains quiet but unmoved. You may not understand it, you may not even want it at times, but you can't deny it. They come back into your mind when you least expect it, not as fantasy but as memory, as something unfinished, as something unbroken. And when they show up again, months or even years later, the connection feels untouched, as if no time has passed. You speak, and it's like the conversation never stopped. You look at them, and it feels like home never left. It's not dramatic, it's not theatrical, it's just real. The Stoics would urge you not to chase, but to observe, to trust that the universe works through rhythm, not urgency. And when a rhythm returns to you again and again, unchanged by distance or silence, it is not to be ignored. This is not obsession. It's recognition. The quiet realization that some connections aren't bound by time or circumstance. They live outside of those limits. And when one of those rare bonds enters your life, stays, disappears, and somehow still returns, what else can you call it but a sign? Not from your mind, from your soul, from the universe that's been trying to tell you all along. This one matters.